I know a woman who piddled around the edges of real love for most of a year, which is not uncommon. People read real love, they learn about it, they go to a group, they attend the conference calls, and it's fascinating. It's different. It's new. But the world doesn't live like that. The world doesn't live in an unconditionally loving way. So people are a little skeptical. And they decide to try it a little bit, which it's like pushing a heavy object a little bit. Doesn't matter how many times you lift a 100-pound weight with 30 pounds of effort. You could do it thousands of times and you never get it off the ground. You really actually have to lift it 100 pounds. So I see people do this a lot. They just kind of piddle around, and she would write and describe problems that she had with her daughter, and then problems with her son, and problems with her boyfriend, and problems with her job, and I would answer her questions, but the problems continued. So I did that for a little while, because very often people aren't ready to hear the whole thing all at once. And eventually I said, it's all the same problem, kid. You are so afraid that you're worthless, and you've been told you're worthless from the time you're a little kid. And at first she really resisted that notion, but then understood that that was very true. So you try to please every single person in your life. You adapt who you are to whatever circumstance or person you're with. It's exhausting, for one thing, and can't be done for the other. So you feel endlessly trapped. We tried all different approaches to all these different problems. I finally said, just come see me. So she did. She came and spent a couple of days. I loved her and taught her, and she began to feel like a real person. In fact, her eyes began to be filled with life. She looked alive. It was very cool. And when she left, she had a different face. No kidding. Just different person. She went back to work. Got rid of her boyfriend first. That was like poof. That was immediate. And it wasn't all smooth at first. She had the idea that she would, learn about real love and feel loved and then go back to work. And people would all gather around her and go, wow, you just really look loved and loving. Is there anything we can do for you? Which is not how it works. So it wasn't smooth. I mean, they weren't used to her being different, and she wasn't used to being herself. She would meet these old people and poof, she'd go back to being the imitation of herself. She would participate in the old lie like she'd been doing all her life. As soon as she met old people, just like many people behave fairly put together until they meet somebody from the old days, their mom, a brother. A lady just wrote recently, and she does fine till she meets her brother, and then she becomes a 4-year-old. She persisted. She persisted in listening and feeling loved and trusting and practicing being herself. And not so many days ago on Skype, up came her picture, and I said, ooh, you like being you. And she said, how can you tell? Because you're wearing it across your face like a billboard. And she described how just in the last day or two, she'd been interacting with same people, same situations at work, and she was behaving differently. She'd gotten out of the old pattern and remembered who she was in the old and difficult situations. And because she remembered who she was, because she behaved differently, because she had an air of confidence, which can only come from knowing who you are, people began to treat her differently. And she says things are going way smoother without her working hard, without her controlling, without her pleasing, without all the other stuff that had never worked before. When we feel loved enough, our wounds heal, our fears go away, and what's left is us. And who we are, we can become very confident in being. We can't succeed in being confident in being somebody else. it changes the way we behave everywhere, in all of our relationships, including work. Today I talked to some kids from the Kohala Middle School on the big island of Hawaii. And they'd been reading Under the Bridge. So the teacher asked if I would talk to the class. So I started off by saying, anybody have any questions? Well, I already knew what the answer to that was going to be. Nobody had any questions. Here are all these kids who I could hear prior to my asking the question had been just jabbering out in the hall. In fact, creating a racket that, sounded like a fire drill. And do you have any questions? Nothing. Nobody moved. Why? Fear. All of our lives we've seen that. The teacher asks a question, everybody freezes because nobody wants to be the one to raise their hand and look like a fool. Just like we do as adults. So I said, is anybody here ever misbehaved in school? I knew I'd get an answer to that because there's always either a class clown or a class troublemaker who will answer that. Kid waved his hand, didn't just raise it, waved it. I said, what'd you do? He said, insubordination. Now, I've never heard that term outside the military, but I said, so why were you insubordinate? Why were you essentially stinky, which is, what insubordination is? He said, I don't know. I said, think about it. What did you get out of it? How did you feel when you were doing it? He said, it was fun. Yes, that's why we do things, because we like the way we feel. I said, you are sick of adults telling you what to do, aren't you? And he looked at me like, you're reading my mind. You could see him going, he loved it. So when you're rebellious, when you're insubordinate, you enjoy telling adults to stick their head in a toilet. I used actually stronger words than that. The kids just burst into laughter. And I talked about why we behave badly. They really enjoyed being seen, understood. I had all of their attentions completely, just because I was an adult listening to them and also teaching them things that they had never heard before. All we ever hear as kids from adults is don't do that. No adult ever explains why we do it. No, just don't. So when we finished, I got quite a series of letters from the members of the class. One person said, my name is Michaela, and I'd really like to thank you for teaching our class. She said, I learned a lot about myself just in 15 minutes. She really enjoyed being listened to. And because she was being listened to, she listened. And she learned a lot about herself. Another girl named La'akea, this is in Hawaii, so these are different names, said, I love how you see things. It's not things that she likes me seeing, it's her. She felt understood. They want to learn. Kids want to understand. They're confused about why adults behave as they do. They're confused about why they behave as they do. And if we would just teach them, in most cases, they're just thrilled. When they feel loved, they'll do just about anything that we ask them to do because we care about them. They trust us. Here's a lady who wrote, we're sitting at the family meeting. She says it in the present tense. An 8-year-old, 12-year-old, 3-year-old, and me, the mom. And it's the 8-year-old's turn to tell us about a mistake that he's made today. And he can't think of anything. Family meetings are hysterical in the beginning. All right, describe a mistake you made today. I can't think of anything, which must mean I was perfect today. But his brother was only too eager to jump in and help describe one of his mistakes. Of course. And mom says, I responded with, nope. Not your job to describe your brother's mistakes. So he says, so why is it so easy to see other people's truth and not your own? Mother says, I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good question. So I'll ask Greg for the video chat. We all want to see ourselves as healthy, as good, because it feels good to see ourselves in that way. We like it. But see, we've been taught that if we make mistakes, if we have flaws, there's something wrong with us. In fact, worse than that we're worthless. So identifying our own mistakes is painful. We don't like that. We don't like feeling worthless. It's almost deadly. I know many people who cannot admit being wrong ever. Recently did an intervention with a 70-year-old man and had never admitted being wrong in his life, ever. And finally, about halfway through the intervention, he admitted to his wife that, I've been wrong to do that. She said, stop. What date is it and what time is it? She wanted to write it down because it's the first time she could ever remember his doing that. But seeing other people's mistakes, oh, that's easy because we have no emotional attachment to whether they feel worthwhile. In fact, pointing out their mistakes makes us feel better about ourselves. We like to have what I call a moral basement. We like to have somebody who's always in the basement, some monster who's worse than us, so that we can always feel better than them. So easy to point out other people's mistakes. Here's a lady who says, my daughter, age 11, came to me today complaining about her school teacher being unpleasant and nasty to her. For example, the teacher would say, Susie's not moving fast enough and not doing her work on time and so on. Mom continues, I've never had complaints from previous teachers about Susie's behavior or work. She's mostly a good kid at school and at home. As I already had done on previous occasions when she'd be upset about this particular teacher, I held her and I told her that her teacher's reaction is about her own, the teacher's, emptiness and fear, not about Susie at all. That when Susie gets upset about it, it's because she believes the lie that she's not good enough, when she really is. She's just forgetting, and it's okay. Well, what I don't understand, Mom continues, is that Susie doesn't like it when I say that last bit, and she gets up and walks away. So am I being unloving with my words here? Am I going wrong somewhere? What would you say? Well, you're really doing quite well. You're explaining the teacher's behavior, but you're not really feeling your daughter's pain. You're not feeling her feeling attacked. You need to tell her that you understand why she would feel bad, that an adult, especially an authority, her teacher, would tell her that she's being wrong or worthless or less worthwhile, and then give her a possible solution. You might give her a picture of you to carry with her so that when the teacher's unkind, she can pull out the picture and remember that you love her. You might go out in the woods and find a stone that the two of you pick together, and she can carry it in her pocket and touch it when the teacher is unkind. Poisonous mushroom, probably not that. You mentioned that you told her that she forgets when she feels upset. Yes, she is forgetting, but when kids are in pain, they don't like to hear that there's something else they're doing wrong. So telling her that she's forgetting, although it's true, she doesn't like to hear that. She's already been told she's wrong, and now here you are telling her she's forgetting. So focus on the understanding her and then giving her a solution. I think you'll discover that it works quite a bit better. At least it does with most kids. This is an adult who says, my mom brought 3 bins filled of memorabilia of mine from her house, stuff from the old days. The contents reflected experiences from high school through college. After looking through them, I was filled with pain. All the pain and shame that I've been running from for so long and never facing up to was right in my face. I could see it in the items that I'd saved. I see 3 emotions in a pattern: pain, shame, and regret all my life. And since I know your mother, how could you not have had those feelings? Raised by that woman. Of course you feel pain, shame, and regret. You were told that you were not lovable from the time you were a child till today. You continue. I made so many bad decisions based on my pain and shame, which is what we do. The bad choices in my life have been a source of regret, building more pain and shame. That's the tragedy, right? We're in pain, we feel shameful, so then we make decisions to get rid of the pain and shame, and those decisions might make us feel better for a second, but overall they add to our pain and shame because they're dumb decisions when we make them in pain. You keep going. I also see the selfishness with which I've acted out of those three emotions and how I hurt people. My reaction is to want to face this so I can avoid pain, shame, and regret in the future. But that's my old way of doing things. Is it right to say that I'd be better off being loved in my pain, shame, and regret so that I can accept myself and continue to feel worthwhile and lovable when I screw up? Yes. Don't avoid those feelings. That's just reacting to them. Don't lash out at other people in those feelings, just reacting. Don't hide them, just lying, another reaction. Feel the pain. Look at the memorabilia if that helps you. Feel the pain, the shame, the regret, and then talk to people who are capable of loving you while you feel that way. People who don't sugarcoat it, who say, well, now, because this is the worst thing. If you talk to somebody about how you feel ashamed about yourself, people try to make you feel better by saying, oh, no, you didn't have such a terrible life. You have nothing to feel ashamed about. That just adds to the confusion. Because if you feel shame, you think you have had something to feel ashamed about. It doesn't do any good to tell somebody who feels ashamed, oh, well, you're wrong. You have nothing to feel ashamed about. Now they feel even more shame. We need to see people in their shame, recognize it, help them see why they felt ashamed, and then just love them. And the shame will go away. The wounds will heal. We don't have to tell them what to do most of the time. Just love them. Like this lady that I was talking about who had just hated work and was having trouble everywhere else. I didn't tell her how to handle work, hardly at all. Mostly it was just help her discover who she is. A queen, not a frightened coward, not somebody who should feel ashamed of herself, not somebody who's weak or controlling or victim-y. Those are only her responses to pain. And then she went to work and simply remembered who she was. It was miraculous. This mother says, one question I have is that of, actually it's not a mother, she got the memorabilia from her mother. Many of my regretful choices have been made out of not knowing who I am or denying who I am and what I want because I people please. You said I can start a new life that doesn't involve the judgments of people who couldn't love me. How do I become more confident in who I am so I can make better choices about my happiness? Completely trust somebody, one person, all the way. Trust them no matter what, whether you understand what they're saying or not. Listen to their valuation of yourself. While you're in pain and feeling ashamed, you couldn't possibly see yourself. So your valuation of yourself is meaningless. You're not meaningless, you're not worthless, but your opinion of yourself is worthless because you're blinded by pain and fear. Find somebody who already knows who they are. How do you tell? They're confident, they're calm, they don't fight, they don't run and hide and lie and act afraid. Find somebody who has nothing to gain, who doesn't need your approval, who doesn't appear to be afraid. And as your fear goes away, what's left is you. You continue. I'm looking for a new job. I don't really want to take a job that I don't want to do just because my husband is afraid about finances. I do want to consider him when I look at my choices, but I don't want to feel like I've thrown myself out in the choice. I want to take a job that suits me, that I would enjoy doing, at which I could offer some value. How do I prepare myself to look for a job? If you can afford financially not to have a job temporarily, then don't. Just work on seeing who you are with that person that you completely trust, who will help you see what your true value is. We talk all the time about self-worth. It's a lie. No child decides they're worthless. What we're doing is we're accepting other worth. We're accepting what other people tell us we're worth. How are you going to change that? It's become so deeply ingrained, you can't change it. But if you listen to somebody you trust, they can help you change it. If they have nothing to gain and no fear, they can help you see yourself. That's what I did with the woman that we were talking about who was having trouble at work. I just helped her see herself because I could see her value better than she could. Then you'll make a job decision much better knowing who you are. If you can't afford to wait, then just get a job, any job that just has income, just for income, not for fulfillment or career or because, like you said, you want to offer some value. Forget all that. Just do the job like a machine for a while, understanding that that's what you're doing, just so you can have income, and then continue to engage yourself in the process of feeling loved, healing, and finding yourself. Then you can look for a job that has meaning and that adds to your happiness. But not until. As long as you're afraid and feeling worthless, you will not pick the right job. Cocaine addicts have had trouble recovering from their addiction, well, as long as there's been cocaine. And there are people who study the recovery from cocaine addiction. They found that many of those who recover, I was talking to a researcher just the other day, many of those who recover from cocaine addiction, they found had some kind of experience with unconditional love. They used that word. Not just, positive regard or, somebody had a good relationship with them. No, unconditional love. That's what many of the people in recovery reported. That changed the perspective of the addict on everything. Once you feel unconditionally loved, the way you see everything changes. There was a lady here just recently who said that when she went outside, the first day after she was here, she was so filled with the feeling of worth, that she mattered, that she felt loved. She said the colors of the trees, the colors everywhere were vibrant. They were different. She saw everything differently, not just herself, the world. This is what they discovered happened with these cocaine addicts. The ones who felt unconditionally loved, their perspective changed on everything, so they lost their need for drugs. Those are the people who stop their addictions, just like everybody else who loses their addictions. If we simply stop using, what we've done is we've lost our pain relief. We can't stand that. So we either go back to our addiction or we find another one. We have to eliminate our need for pain relief, which means, let me think, we have to lose our pain. And only love can do that. Now, some of the recovering coke addicts, they found, unconditional love is so rare in the world that a few people had found it from a person. But some of these recovering coke addicts had found the experience of feeling unconditionally loved while under the influence of psychedelics. So LSD, psilocybin, others. So now what the researchers are doing, and this is a study being done at a major medical school. I talked to the researcher. They're administering psilocybin, which is a natural compound found in something like 200 different mushrooms. It causes you to have hallucinations, to see if they could recreate this experience. Forgive me for laughing. The problem is it's completely unpredictable, and they have no idea how long it will last. So rather than our learning how to love each other, scientists at a major medical center are going to give people psychedelics like LSD to see if they can create the sensation of love so that people can quit their cocaine addiction. Back in the 60s, Timothy Leary and others were advocating the use of psychedelics freely. what was the word? Peace out, farm out, farm out meaning with pharmacology. People were finding temporary happiness by using the right combination of drugs. And now here we are, what, 50 years later, and we're repeating the same experiments that Timothy Leary was reviled for 50 years ago, as opposed to our learning how to love each other. I was simultaneously amused and horrified that we've gone backward 50 years to re-experiment with something that didn't work then. Here's a lady who said, I came home on Sunday to my 17-year-old daughter, and she was moving out of the house. She'll be 18 in September, so, a few months. At first, I felt devastated, shame, guilt, and honestly, some relief. And although I don't agree with her decision to move out and run away, part of me understands. She's angry at me and her father. We've been divorced for 5 years. Both her father and I have done a poor job of teaching her responsibility. We've been selfish with affection, time, money, lots of things. We've done a crappy job. All of you parents, pay attention. Kids start misbehaving at a very young age. So I watch parents everywhere I go. When a 3-year-old is behaving horribly and the parents think it's cute and they laugh, and I'm thinking, I wonder if you're going to think it's cute when that child drives drunk and hits a tree and dies, or when that child is pregnant and a single mom raising 3 kids at the age of 19. We don't pay attention to their behavior young. We laugh, we get irritated, but we don't love and teach. We think, oh, no big deal. Wrong. This is how it ends up. When they're 17 and 18, when they're moving out of the house, or they're getting married, or they're getting pregnant when they're 14. And often kids like this remain detached from their parents for the rest of their lives, and their lives are destroyed because of the lack of connection. The time to act is now. So listen to this cautionary tale from this mother of a 17-year-old. She says, during the years that my husband and I have been divorced, at least 3 times, she's packed up her belongings, moved to the other parent's house, and cut off the offensive parent for a long time. I know she feels alone, angry at both of us, and definitely afraid. Now, all of us, listen to the tone of this mother. She says, the child is alone and afraid, as opposed to most mothers who write me who say, I'm offended at my child's behavior. This mother really wants, obviously, to help her daughter, recognizing that she's brought her daughter to this place. I mean, here's a daughter whose parents were so clueless that she'd get fed up with one, and in her entitledness, she would go to the other parent's house, who was also clueless, and she'd milk that parent for all that she could, and then that one finally got fed up, so she'd move back to the other parent's house. This is a very common pattern. Mom continues, my real love coach suggested writing. I'm asking my daughter to spend time, giving her my full attention, listening, being wrong with her. But I don't know how to support her to be responsible now that she's leaving. Until she turns 18, I would like to continue to pay for her groceries, cell phone, toiletries, basic clothing, graduation, but I'm not comfortable with giving her extra money for rent at the place that she's going to, or eating out. We all already have the agreement that she's responsible for her car. You can do whatever you want to, obviously. But if a kid moves out, then they have chosen to be financially responsible entirely. When children make dumb choices, what do? We jump in and rescue them from the consequences of their choice. So what do kids learn? I'll do whatever I want to, and mom or dad will come and give me money and rescue me and save me. I get to see these kids all over the world. I get to see them when they're 40 years old, and they're emotionally and even career-wise crippled. So you can't pay the price of her choice. If I buy an expensive new car, do I send the bill for monthly payments to my father or you? No. And neither should she. So if she moves out, she moves out. She gets all the consequences of it, which is she makes her own way. She said, up yours. And you go, okay. You don't pay her to be irresponsible, which is what you'd be doing if you gave her even 5 cents. You say, she moved in with a girlfriend and her mom. Perfect. I'm sure her girlfriend will be a great parent. She has a part-time job and has agreed to pay room and board of $350 to live with her girlfriend and her mother. You want to bet ahead of time? I'll bet you $100 ahead of time that she never makes a full payment of $350 to her girlfriend and her mother. She won't, because she's already learned to be irresponsible, and she'll come to you for rent money. You continue. These are decent people. Irrelevant. I think that she should come up with money herself. Am I giving too much financially? Yes. So she leaves? Fine. But then she's on her own financially. And you love her. You say, sweetie, I love you. I trust you. If you want to move out, that's fine. I believe that you can do it. I support you all the way with all my love, but not all my money. And then kids will say, well, you don't love me. No. I love you a lot. That's why I trust you and support you and will have you over to the house and give you kisses, but love and money aren't the same thing. Not at all. Otherwise, let's see, my banker would feel very loved because I send a mortgage payment every month. No, they're not the same. And you show no pain or concern. It's become an axiom that loving parents have to act concerned. No, concerned is a really sneaky word for afraid. And when we act concerned around our kids, we tell them that we're afraid. We're afraid that they won't make it, that they're too stupid to make it on their own, and so we have to rescue them, which is what you're about to do with her. It's her choice where to live, but you pay for her only when she's living with you. And then you have to continue. And if you do choose to live with me, then we're going to have a new agreement about how you live with me. Now that she's moving out, we get to start over. So for you, the mother, you agree to no anger ever, no disappointment, no nagging. You agree to meet with her daily to review how things are going so that you can be accountable, and you will pay for her to stay there. She makes an agreement to demonstrate no anger, to have the daily discussions, and not to give you attitude about the responsibilities that you'll give her around the house. And you need to give her significant responsibilities. At age 17, my kids were doing pretty heavy work around the house, like serious work. If you said, how do I teach her responsibility? That way. Either making her financially liable when she leaves, or if she stays, you still give her, my guess would be she has minimal to no chores. That's the average for kids. I ask kids, what are your chores? They're 17 years old. Once a week, I take the garbage out. We had our 3-year-old taking the garbage out. That's a 3-year-old's job. Any 3-year-old can do it, and takes, 6 minutes. This is how you teach her responsibility. Either way, either leaving or staying at home. If you don't, she's going to pay for it for the rest of her life, and so will you. I was talking to a woman, and I had spent considerable time with her, loving her, but we'd gotten to the point where there were some things that she needed to do differently in her marriage, with her kids, with herself. She really enjoyed being loved. She enjoyed being patted on the head and kissed on the cheek, as we all do. But she really didn't like being told what she was responsible for, much like the 17-year-old girl that we were just talking about. And I said to her one day on Skype, when she was sulking because I was describing something to her, I said, you just hate it when I teach you anything. She said, no, I don't. I don't hate you teaching me, with almost exactly that tone of voice. You have a very strong pattern that looks like this. I tell you A, something. You say, no, it's not A, it's B. Of course, remember, you came to me and asked me how to make your life happier. So You miss any opportunity to learn. You're not trusting. You stay the same. I just told you that you hate it when I teach you. I wasn't asking you if you hate it. I told you. And you just told me no, that I was wrong. Again, you do hate it. And until you admit that, you can't change it. Then she said, well, it's not that I hate it. It's just that I don't understand it. No, honey. If I were to give it to 100 people, a picture of you and say, is this liking or hating whatever she's doing? 100 out of 100 would say hating. And now this is an important point. Is it true that you don't understand it? Yes, but you don't understand what I'm saying only because you hate what I'm saying. And that's true with most of us. How many of us have said, I don't understand? None of us has any trouble understanding. If you walk toward me, I will give you a check for $1 million. None of us has a hard time understanding that we just won the lottery and we need to take the ticket in to, get it cashed. Where we have trouble understanding things is when we hear things we don't like. I can't even count how many 100 times in my life people have said to me, oh, I didn't understand. And so far, there may be an exception yet to come in my life. Every single time somebody says they don't understand, they ended up doing less than I had instructed them to do. Nobody ever does more than I instructed them to do and then says, oh, I didn't understand. I thought you meant to do more. So is this woman having difficulty understanding, and is she thinking about it? Yes, but it's a complete deception, because first she hates it, and then she does what most of us do. We first hate, first we have our feeling, and then we think, we use our brains to justify our feelings. And so it just confuses the trash out of it. It's unintentional, but we confuse ourselves nonetheless. Learning theorists have proven this over and over. First, we have a feeling. We like or dislike a thing. We hate a thing. We choose a thing. It's based on feelings. And then we use our brains to justify our feeling upon which we made our choice. And then we lie to ourselves and say we made our choice rationally using the justifications for our feeling. Ooh, it's very sneaky what we do. We're far less rational beings than we think. I saw a couple, not so long ago, and they were at the end of their marriage. They were both done. They both said, we quit. And before they got there, in fact, each of them had canceled at least, once or twice. And on their way here from the airport, she texted and said, I hope you're ready because we both hate each other. So I just loved them and taught them. Now, everybody's different. She completely believed that she was a helpless victim in their relationship. One of the first things I said to her is, you are the emotional engine in your relationship. You will have to change before he does. People really hate hearing that because what they hear is that they're the problem. No, you're just the first that has to change. When you go out to start your car, the most important part of the engine is the key, the ignition. Then the rest of it works. Same with her. Same with many of us. Somebody has to start. And when I told her she was the emotional engine, she was the one that had to start, she just hated it because she liked blaming him for everything. And if she was the one that had to change first, how could she keep blaming him? But she finally listened. And she began to feel loved. And she began to just relax and light up. By the second day, you wouldn't have recognized her. I didn't. I sometimes wish I could take a picture before we start, but you can't take pictures of people because they change their face immediately. Every time she lit up in happiness, his face relaxed. She didn't notice it. So I finally said to her, right now you're ecstatic, you're happy, you're peaceful, you feel powerful. Look at his face. And she said, I have never seen his face like this in all of our long married years, ever, not including when we were dating and when we got married. And she reached over and touched his arm and said, it's nice to meet you. It was darling. These two started over. They left all the pain behind and began their relationship anew. With her knowing who she is, with him feeling safe, because up to that point, I said to her, being around you is like being around a whirling ball of razor wire. She had just not recognized how she tore people up while claiming to be in the greater pain herself. Somebody has to change the pattern. She chose to, she changed, and so did their marriage. It's beautiful. And we can all learn to do this. Here's somebody who says, I started Real Love recently and I'm grateful to have found it. I have a 23-year-old son who has mental health issues and is a recovering alcoholic. So imagine, 23 and a recovering alcoholic. He spent a couple years in jail and was released a few months ago. And when he got out of jail, he was really attached to his jail buddies. Now I know from Real Love that he found acceptance and love in that group. No, probably not. Not likely. What he found was a kind of acceptance based on shared misery. Alcoholics often get together and, in fact, go to a bar, and you'll see this kind of thing. It's shared pain. Everybody's laughing and singing together when they couldn't get along together on the outside without a drink on a bet. That's not love. It's familiarity, shared pain. You continue. I arranged behavioral health support, and they got him into an apartment after transitioning from a halfway house. After I helped him move into his apartment, he stopped all communication with me. Real Love has showed me how I leaned on imitation love with him. I've always been fearful of saying and doing the wrong thing around him, concerned that he would get upset, and trying desperately to help him. I'm left with regrets and guilt that I'm working on in my Real Love group. You two couldn't have done anything but exchange imitation love. Like crazy. It's the only thing you had. Neither of you had unconditional love. You need your son to like you. You've been terrified of his disapproval. Kids watch for the slightest twitch of our face to learn whether they can control us. One lady just kept over and over telling me that her daughter wasn't controlling her because she was using the words that I gave her. I said, except that you have this pained look on your face. She said, well, how do you know? Because you have it now. When your daughter says the right thing, she keeps looking for what to say until your face screws up in that expression of discomfort. And she's hit the jackpot. So she keeps doing it, making you uncomfortable until you give her what she wants, because she knows that you'll do anything to avoid her disapproval. So your son could not have possibly felt unconditionally loved by you. You continue. Recently, he was arrested again, and I reached out to him in panic. I contacted his case managers, concerned that he'd need more support. And you know, that sounds like a good thing. This sounds like the quintessential concerned parent. But your panicking communicates what to him? That you don't trust him. That you're afraid for him because he's an idiot. You think he needs rescuing and that you need to be his rescuer. It's not loving. The world teaches a lie about this, that concerned parents need to be worried. If you said to a whole room full of parents, a concerned parent worries about their children, you wouldn't get a reaction at all because everybody believes that. No. Part of love is to care about our children, but not to be concerned about them. Just a clever way to say afraid. You keep going. That action from me, my panicking, resulted in my son revoking my right to have any contact with his case managers. Hardly blame him. So now I'm left in the dark and concerned about his welfare. So what do you do now? You focus on you. You find more real love. You attend the real love groups. You go to Meetup. It's called meetup.com, I think. And you find the Greater Phoenix Meetup site. The sites that involve Garvin and Zulema and Ragu and others. You'll see their names on there. You know you're in the right place. You can go to a retreat. There are lots of things you can do. There's a free seminar in June. Focus on in Phoenix. Focus on getting what you need. I say Phoenix because this person lives in Phoenix. Getting what you need, or you won't be able to connect with your son at all. The question isn't what to do with your son, it's what to do with you. But you continue. My question is, do I contact him any further? Do I drop notes under his door, sending him my love, or do I back off completely? First, tend to you. Then, in a few months, when people in your loving group, as found in the Meetup site and the Greater Phoenix groups, in a few months, when people tell you that you're ready, not when you think you are, because you'll be too blinded usually by pain and fear to know, when they tell you you're ready, then you can send him notes, email, send notes in the mail, send a pizza. He's not going to turn away a pizza delivery guy. Nobody would. Nobody will. Here's a free pizza. He'll let it in. And there's a note from you on the pizza. Brief, tender messages. Thinking about you. That's it. Never, haven't heard from you in a long time, because that's about you. But don't go to his place and slip a note under the door. He's going to feel violated. He's going to feel like you stalked him, which is what you would have done. First you, then him, gradually, and your group will help you with that. Every once in a while I tell stories about Sylvie or Zoe or other little kids who've been raised in real love. And here's a story about Zoe. Her mother says, today when we were playing with, apparently there's an infant toddler's version of Legos. I never heard of them, so I'm going to call them Legos, even if I'm wrong. We were playing with Legos, and Zoe threw a block and then hit me with another block. Now, it was light and playful, but I told her we don't throw or hit people. And so I started packing away the Legos. Now, this is brilliant. See, most parents say, now, if you do that, I'm going to do this. And then we say it again. Now, if you do that again, I'm going to do this. And what's the kid learning? I've got an idiot parent and I can do whatever I want to, and they're not going to do anything. No, this mother had already talked about we don't hit people. So she just started packing up the blocks. Zoe started crying, but almost immediately started helping me put the blocks away and stop crying. And after I zipped up the bag, she asked if she could play with them again. I repeated that we don't hit or throw and gave her the bag right then to let her play with them again. Didn't have any problems then or since. Children are not stupid. They don't need to be punished, but they need to be taught every single time. When children do something that's unloving, irresponsible, not conducive to happiness, we're the ones who've been appointed to teach them. We decided to bring them into the world, and what happens is, we do something about every, 10th time. The rest of the time we just go, I'm tired, it's no big deal. And so raising a child becomes like gambling. And the kids go, this is complete chaos. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And that's how we end up with the 17-year-old that we talked about earlier who's moving out of her mother's house. It starts with blocks with a toddler. New letter. Here's somebody who says, I'm confused about the issue of fixing people. On conference calls, I've heard many things like, if we see somebody drowning, we shouldn't address it. Also known as, we should look the other way, because it's not my business. But this doesn't seem loving to me. Here's the crux of my issue. The coaching to turn one's head to the pain of others goes against all my training to care about others, especially those in pain. How do I resolve this? Number two, another thing I've seen on conference calls. Now, keep in mind that what this person sees on conference calls may not be true, but I'm just reading what she sees. Telling ourselves, I'm not qualified to provide information to this person because I'm drowning too. Yes, I agree that I can't provide them unconditional love, but why couldn't I pass along information to them, like about where they could access it? And number 3, or that it's a judgment that the other person is in need of rescuing. In other words, rescuing being seen as bad. And she's saying, why couldn't it just be an assessment of reality that they need to be rescued and that they're drowning, as opposed to a critical judgment? I don't know what they say on conference calls. I don't attend them. I don't really care. The people who are on conference calls, the coaches who are on conference calls, are not stupid. They know what's going on. So I don't know if the assessment of this person's accurate or not. But I've always said that if someone is drowning, this will clear it up for the person asking the question. We don't need to go over what's being said. If somebody is drowning, then you love them as much as you can. Not necessarily rescue them or save them, as much as you can love them, as much as you can teach them. And 2 things, as much as you can. Number 2, as much as they're able to hear it. So you don't try to love somebody past what you can, or you're going to empty out and make it worse. And they have to be able to hear it. So if you're trying to love and teach somebody and they can't hear you, it becomes kind of cruel to keep going. If they don't want to hear it, if you repeatedly throw a rope out to somebody who's drowning and they keep screaming at you that you're an idiot and they don't want a yellow rope, they want a pink rope, then at some point it becomes none of our business. And if they want to drown, they actually get to. That's what I've said. I know a woman who has filled her life with, let me see if I have enough time. Yeah, I do. Filled her life with distractions. Men, travel, parties, whatever. Life's a mess. House is a mess. I suggested starting with just little things, like clean your own house and keep it that way. She writes, I so much enjoy to do just the little things. Making the bed in the morning, keeping a kitchen clean. It takes like 3 seconds every day to keep the house in order. Now, probably takes more than 3, but she's making a point. As opposed to doing nothing, and then after a few weeks, it takes a whole day to clean the house. Plus, it stresses me out, and seeing everything piling up just disturbs my peace of mind. So it's easier to maintain orderliness. Exactly. Just like it's easier to maintain loving, which is the reason I suggested starting off with cleaning the house. It's a good representation of the rest of your life. Way easier to maintain loving than it is to live from crisis to crisis. So you've learned a good lesson. You continue. The lie that I've been taught is that it's so hard to be responsible, that the world is a place of destruction and suffering. I so hope I can leave these lies forever and stay on the field of life forever, where every day is creation and joy. I hear myself feel guilty if I'm too pleased with the day-to-day life. I need to shut up when I hear these lies. Shut up when I say them. This is beautiful. What you're doing is miraculous. You're changing your entire perspective on living. Plus, you continue, I'm shifting a lot in regards to my next vacation, for example. Last night I was Googling the resorts and activities and excursions, and I stopped dead when I read there is no nightlife at one place. Just relaxation, good food, conversation, great beach. My old lies came up about what constitutes fun. Up all night, tired in the morning equals fun. So I realized that I'm still like a robot, getting jerked around in my mind with imitation love. Once again, shut up to my mind. Because the truth is, I've never gotten satisfaction from praise and power and men. That's my mother's world. As far as I can remember, I've always found the most joy in exploring and creating. So I'm pleased to read that the resort has everything in regards to activities, and then some. How long will it take to live on the field of life? 100%. I think I trust a whole lot better now than I did at the beginning of the year. She's learning who she is. and that when she was in pain, she did these other things that now no longer work for her. She's discovering that she likes peacefulness, orderliness, not chaos and crises. And as a result, she's changing her choices about everything. Sometimes it starts with cleaning the house, starts with what we do for vacations. It continues with how we behave at work, like the lady that we talked about much earlier in the video chat. We can change everything as we come to know who we are. I know a woman who argues. New thought. If I say something's blue, she says, no, it's azure or aquamarine or any one of those million colors like with lipstick that I've never heard of. If I say it's noon, no, it's 12 o'clock and 14 seconds afterward. I finally told her that she'd never, ever feel loved until she stopped arguing. So I said, let me know when you're ready. So I just concluded our conversation, said goodbye. She wrote, she said, I think you're right. I actually like arguing. I'm realizing that it's literally the only attention I ever got in my home. It was the only way I even knew I was alive. If I was fighting for my life with my two brothers or surviving my dad, I felt alive. If somebody was arguing with me, then at least another human being was engaging with me. I've seen a lot of people do this. They just reflexively argue because, well, it's exciting. It's empowering, and it is, in a bizarre way, sort of empowering. She said, I was happy that somebody was engaging, acknowledging that I was alive, and that was preferable to the massive void of pure emptiness that I otherwise experienced, where I literally didn't know who I was, where I was, or why I was, and I still don't. So I'm trying to feel loved I have been trying to feel loved by getting you to argue with me. I did that in my last two relationships when I needed attention. What a horrible experience for the other party. I'm sorry for arguing with you, and I'm going to try to stop it. It happens more when I get drained. Well, there's no need to feel sorry for arguing with me. It doesn't bother me. It isn't killing me. Just see it like you just did. See what it's doing to you. That it's killing you. I'm going to repeat a pattern I've used in many, many conversations. When we see these things that we do, we don't have to promise that we'll quit them. Just see it. And then gradually decide, one instance at a time, whether you'll argue or be happy. Arguing is just giving into a lifetime of reflex and never produces happiness. So what does? We find love, like we've talked about many times. We trust the love we get. Huge step. Finding it's hard enough, but we go to all the trouble to find it and we don't trust it, which is a little dumb because then it's useless. Then once we've trusted it, it's not good enough just to trust it in the moment. Or we have to have somebody unconditionally loving in front of us every second of the day. Then we have to remember it. And as we then, number 4, share it, we actually do all of those steps all the time. We're constantly finding more as we share it. We're trusting it. You can't share what you don't trust. And we're remembering the power of love in our lives as we share. It's a beautiful cycle to live. We can all do it. It's worth it. We'll see you next time.